Yo. Alrighty, we're into round 11 review for Footy Rants. There was some unexpected results, but I think overall we everything that I saw was pretty well by the books. So at the end of round 11, the table for the NRL stands as follows. We have the Storm out on top on 18 points. Then you've got the rest of the top four all locked up on 16 points, and that consists of the Broncos, Sharks, and Roosters. In fifth, you have the Dragons on 14 points, Manly and the Cowboys both on 12 points, and the Raiders wrap up the top 8 on 10 points with points differential. So outside of the 8, still on 10 points, you have the Bulldogs and Parramatta. A big logjam with 8 points of Penrith, Gold Coast, Rabbitohs and Warriors, and lingering back down in 15th and 16th, you've got the Tigers on 6 points and the Knights on 4 points. Okay, so we'll move forward now, again, bearing with me with my technology. Whoop. Alrighty, so we move into our first game, which is the Sharks v the Cowboys. It was definitely another case of a game of two halves. A little bit of unexpected results for the Cowboys, I think, in the first half. Not too many probably would have thought that they would have led without JT 14-0 going into half time, and we just sort of seen the Cowboys just withstood just a little bit of defensive pressure early on in that first 10 minutes before they got their just rewards, and it was just a good old-fashioned battle up the guts, a struggle for dominance. That it's no secret that the Cowboys are missing a number of big-name front rowers, and that they're not picking their starters that they would have liked. But aside from that, I think the Cowboys just made the most of their opportunities. You're seeing there, Ben Hampton sort of just come onto the field and got himself in the right position. And again, we've seen here the kicking game of Michael Morgan coming up trumps. But I think that the big difference in the game overall was fifth tackle options. I think that was the only thing that let the Cronulla side down in the first half. They were rolling through the Cowboys up the middle easy enough. As we said, they're missing a lot of big name stars, whilst Bolton and Tamalolo are doing a fantastic job, and so they should. They've both won premierships, and it just got to this point now that we're seeing around that 60-minute mark, and it was just like, oh, okay, here comes Cronulla. Like you almost expected it, and we see here Chad Townsend doing what any good halfback should do, and that's sniffing around his forwards that he's trying to get on the front foot for him. It was a great offload by Fafita there, and then it was just a matter of possession. Sasaya Feki, he had his chances. I don't know how many he sort of ended up bombing, and he let a couple in, and he just took his opportunity finally and executed. And we see here, Captain Kane Lynette, my favourite Cowboys player, blundering up an opportunity. And this, for me, this was the play that ultimately dictated the game. We see here in 65th minute, Luke Lewis comes out of the line, makes that shot, and I believe that was the second time. I can see it all there on JT's face. The second time that the Cowboys failed to finish the set. And that basically was the difference for me. So before we jump into this game, I'll just pause that there. So that was the big key difference towards the back end of the game was just the completion. So the Sharks Cowboys 18-14 was the score difference. Again, I said it leading into the game last week with Cronulla. The fact that they're still not performing at their best and getting these results, I think that's something to be of concern for opposition clubs. If they just start to get things ticking over and playing their way a little bit better and being a bit more consistent, as we said, as soon as they started to hold on to the footy a little bit more, they've got that power up the middle with their forwards like Gallen, like Fafita, even Tagatisi off the bench. Bakuya's back in the frame now. there's a lot of firepower there, and if you're getting that consistent and rolling, that's danger signs. So, a well fought win, and like I said, I think once it got to about that 20 minutes to go, you just sort of expected them to come away with a win. Sorry guys. Alrighty, moving into the second game, we had the Warriors up against the Dragons. We see it was a big day for Ben Madalino, playing his 200th game in the NRL for the Warriors. And it was good to see him get a try. I would love to know how much that was paying for him to be first try scorer. And what was funny leading up into all this play for the Dragons was that they were actually targeting the opposite edge. They were playing down their right side a lot, through Macron a lot more, who I guess they were looking to for a lot of leadership with the inexperienced man at 5'8". But as soon as they sort of just paid their dues a little bit after conceding that first try, it all of a sudden opened up, and that's where they've been having more of their success is, through Joel Thompson. We've seen him absolutely dominate round one with a couple of tries, and then Tim Laffey's been having a really strong year, and we can see here, we'll go back and replay this. This is some great play by Kurt Mann, and I think he was a big hero for the Dragons. So you see Macron comes in, and it's just this little lofted duck. It looks so simple, but to get that pass away and execute that effectively is so important as a half, and as a second string half, more importantly, Mary McGregor will be most impressed that the execution was of that higher rate. Again, for the Warriors, when you're going to toss up stats that sound like this, so I'll lay them out for you now. Line breaks 9-1, offloads 20-2, missed tackles 57-22. You just can't give teams in the NRL, doesn't matter if it's the Melbourne Storm or the Newcastle Knights, you just can't give teams that sort of opportunity to get over the top of you. Because we're seeing now that teams that simply starve opposition of possession for longer periods of time simply just can't overcome. It doesn't really matter the quality, it's just a matter of time. You build the pressure, you get the result. I don't think the game has changed and will ever change in that respect. If you dominate possession, you complete your sets, eventually a team's going to crack. And again, just going back to the efforts of Kurt Mann, I thought he was also very, very good defensively. Come up with a number of good one-on-one tackles, and I think that really helped to take the pressure off of Macron. I think after they sort of were playing down that right edge early, getting a little bit frustrated, and then came back to the left edge, had that faith, and let Kurt Mann get his running game going a little bit more. I think that's where Macron's like, I can trust this guy, like, let's get going. And ultimately, that just led to the ruck being won by the Dragons. I think pretty much all of the starting forwards bar Tyson Frizzell for the Dragons all ran for over 100 metres. Paul Vaughan was great again. I think he ran for over 200 metres. So he's doing everything he possibly can to get named to that New South Wales Origin side later today. So as of the time of this recording, I don't know the outcome of those sides. So that will be something that I perhaps will get on top of tomorrow. I might release another video and have a bit of a yarn about those selections. But yeah, it's just tiny little lapses of concentration for the Warriors. 13 minutes, there was a window of 3 tries, and then there was another 16-minute window of another 3 tries. So it's really concentrated portions, of possession that are really costing the Warriors. So if they can clean that up, they're away, they're laughing. So tidy up your error rates, lock up and secure the footy, and you're going to have a lot more success. I know it sounds simple in principle, but it's funny what happens when you get the fundamental principles right, how much fun you can have as a football team. Moving into the second game on Friday night, and I think it's pretty well something that we all expected. We've seen there the man of Luke Brooks unable to play, injured yet again for the Tigers, and when you've got what's pretty much a second string halves combination in Little John and Rankin. They really played like that. The stats themselves didn't really tell the tale of a 36-0 thrashing. I think all that the Broncos did was just capitalise on the pressure that they built. They'll be most impressed with a scoreline of 0, but aside from the obliteration in the second half of the first half, the Tigers were pretty good defensively. They ended up building a little bit of pressure off the back of their strong defence and got a few repeat sets, but just I think Tedesco ended up over the line 3 or 4 times and got denied every time. So it wasn't through lack of trying. But we see a great defensive effort here from Tedesco, which saw him get sin binned, and that's where the Broncos made the Tigers pay. The only really glaring stat was a 6-1 line break, and if that's 5, there's already 5 tries that you could tip off the back of line breaks, and we're seeing the running good form that Corbin Sims is showing, and he'll be pretty unlucky not to get at least picked in the Origin squad. It wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't make the final 17, but I think he deserves to be in the squad. He showed good form and played a really important role coming off the bench, him and Thaiday for the Broncos. And yeah, we've seen the addition of James Roberts here and what he provided for the Broncos. Absolute masterclass, and this is something that you just can't coach. When you've got speed like that, and you've got broken play, and you've got inexperienced players out there, that's what you expect. And you've got someone who's nippy like Cody Nigarima, who's sniffing around the ball as he should be, whether he's playing at 9 or at 7. It was a just result. Another area where the Tigers pretty much just got run out was in the forward pack. They just got dominated. Aaron Woods was the only person who ran for over 100 meters in the Tigers forward pack. And then unfortunately here we're seeing in the footage now that nasty injury from McCulloch. And I just want to sort of sit on that for a little bit. I'll just pause this. Just skipped ahead a little bit. Apologies, guys. As I said, I'm still getting used to all this myself. That sickening head blow too. I'll actually go back and play that again. To Andrew McCulloch. We've really got to make sure that we're looking after our players here with these head knocks. It really concerns me when I know Wayne Bennett, what he's probably trying to do is just dumb down the effects and take any sort of pressure off his team that may be coming up. He came out and said, he should be right, he's good to go, he's fine, he'll be coming to New Zealand. We've since found out that won't be the case, nor would I expect that it would be. When you've got you're just seeing the way that Andrew was taking in those breaths. He was knocked the fuck out, and you hate seeing that happen to any player, but then you actually break that down and think about what has happened to the body, the trauma that is just being admitted to McCulloch's brain, and that's something that's really scary. And I don't want to blow things out of proportion. I know head knocks happen every week. We've seen how many players are actually going to the HIA now, and I think it's a good thing that we are looking after our players in that sense. But I think we also need to make sure that we're really looking after these players. It would even concern me, and I know that he, for all intents and purposes, in a fortnight, come round 12, will probably be chomping at the bit and good to go. But that it just shocks me with the urgency that we look to bring these players back in, and we forget the sacrifices that all of these guys are making as athletes. Yes, they're professional. Yes, they're earning money that 90% of the population would love to be earning, but they're being put in situations that 90% of the population aren't being put in. They're putting their body on the line week in, week out, and I think as genuine fans, if you're listening to this, we don't realise the rigours that do go on and these social bubbles that get created and the pressures that he'll be feeling, from the business that is the Brisbane Broncos to come back. And yes, he'll want to come back himself. He's the youngest player, one of the youngest players to ever play 200 games in the NRL. He's super fucking experienced. He knows what he's doing. But at the same time, he's not a fucking neurosurgeon either. So he probably doesn't even, you can feel okay. You can feel like you're up to doing something, and you might have, adequate motor control and this, that, and the other, but there could be something drastically going on underneath those layers of the brain that you're not aware of, and then all of a sudden, bang, out of nowhere, it becomes an issue. Especially when we start to see these cumulative concussions happen in short succession. Like, I would hate for him to come back a week early when just one more week alone would have reduced his risk by X percentage of another head knock, and then he does happen to get another one, and then it's amplified even more. I'm only saying this simply because of the nature of which he was knocked out in. Like, the fact that he just got his head in. Like, you look at that, you see tackles similar to that week in, week out in the NRL. So for that to happen and him to get that head wound that he did, that's something not to be taken lightly. And to be honest, I hope that common sense prevails, and if all sort of tests come back and he is fine and he has recovered within that fortnight, well, awesome, good. I hope he is ready to play again. But outside of that, I'd like to see more precaution be taken. We're talking about someone's life here, so yeah, that's just my little 2 cents about that. And I hope that common sense prevails. Moving into the next game, so this was the first game of Saturday night. We see the Titans were absolutely outclassed by Manly here, and bit of a turn back for old Achille Uarte, putting the footwork on Tyrone Roberts there. And again, it was just a case of the accumulative 1%ers for Manly adding up, and they just maintained possession, and they accumulated double the offloads, and Titans missed double the tackles. So just those little key stats alone, I think Trent Barrett, I beg your pardon, will be really happy with the effort and execution of Manly. We see here that Ash Taylor takes this intercept, so you clean up. That's classed as an unforced error in my book. Clean that up. That's nothing to stress about. That's not really a system error. Not when you're looking. And I think just this inside-outside ball that a lot of these halves shrewd, particularly during this round, was really, really good to see. We're seeing some great edge attack, and we probably didn't. I'll go back and just watch what Daly Cherry Evans is able to do here in manufacturing these points. Puts the first one away. Second one. Sorry again, guys. Whoa. Just that right foot step in. Just holds that defender, holds the center up. It was LG. Holds him up, and then just creates that space. That's what any good half should be doing. He should be changing his lines, his timing at the line, anything that he can do to create more space for these two absolute flyers out on his edges. So yeah, that was really pleasing to see, and I think Cherry Evans really hasn't done himself any disfavours in being tossed up around these Origin talks, and for some reason, I don't know what it is, there's a lot of bad blood in people's mouths around when they speak the name Daly Cherry Evans after his backflip with these two very clubs. But, we see it happen all the time now. So, yeah, for me, I think he's obviously rubbed up the wrong noses somewhere up the chain. And I'm not sure who those people are that he potentially has pissed off. But I think I would pick him. In my personal opinion, I would pick Cherry Evans over Milford. I know Milford has that clutch play, with his footwork and his off-the-line speed, but... you look at what Origin is, and it's about, building that pressure, the accumulative 1%ers. And I think Cherry Evans can definitely master that. For me, I really like what he brings, and the fact that he is in better form. He was the first to admit that last probably 2 seasons, to be fair, haven't been some of his better years. And I think that's what can happen sometimes when you burst onto the scene as a young star and being in grand finals as early as he was. Sometimes that can be a detriment. We've seen just before as well, keeping on top of Origin, Nate Miles there with a knee injury. It seemed to be an impact injury, and they tried to get it going again through the halftime break, but just couldn't really muster it up. And Yeah, it's unfortunate. I don't think Miles really should be there anyway. I can understand why his name is in the mix, because we're missing so much experience with Matt Scott being out now and Corey Parker retiring. But you never like to see a bloke who's done so much for the game be limited in his opportunities to represent his state, if that was going to be the plan with Kevy Walters moving forward through injury, especially so close. And you think if it is anything significant, it's going to be pretty close to ruling him out for the majority of the series, at least for the first 2 games. But who knows? Fingers crossed it might not be as bad. But from what I heard, I think it was ACL through impact, which is a nasty little injury. So we've seen there just through the highlights as I was talking over the top. It was just a case of Manly executing a little better. Titans tried hard, but realistically, they only scored a genuine 6-pointer through the efforts of Anthony Don, who's been great all season for them. And the front rowers in James and Wallace, they definitely tried their hardest, and their work rate was high, as it has been all season. And I think I think Wallace will definitely be in the Queensland team. I think James is probably just caught in a bit of a crossfire of some props that aren't necessarily old. In Clemmer and Woods, who've sort of been there, done it. Same with Fafita, and the fact that he hasn't really been in rep circles before. As we all know, sometimes once you're in those rep circles, it's harder to get out than it is to get in. So, yeah, I think they'll miss out. James will miss out, but Wallace will probably push a case for the Queensland side. Alrighty, moving forward, we've got the Eels and Raiders. So we see the man on screen there, Mitchell Moses, in his first game after leaving the West Tigers, and I've got a juicy little clip that got me excited, especially after the barrage that I gave him leading into the game, leaving the West Tigers as far as his defence goes. Another person that we've seen was Jared Croker on screen, and he was playing in his 200th game, so he became in the top 4 youngest players to play 200 NRL games. Another product of a positive product of the NYC in its early days. He came through with Josh Dugan in that gun Canberra under 20 side that was always in those battles with the Warriors and the Broncos in those early days. And I think for Parramatta, they'll definitely feel like this is a game that got away from them. And I think we see here the man of the minute, Josh Papalii, along with his forward partners in Paulo and Shannon Boyd, they probably changed the game. But when they score this try, getting some momentum, and then they build it and score again before the half's out, and all of a sudden it's 10-all. There was a massive momentum shift, and I think Canberra, just simply because they have that losing streak going for them, they were probably starting to think, fuck, not again. But to their credit, they hung tight, and to see someone, look, Sammy Radradra, just pushing through, and it just shows that the partnership and the power that they have when everything is going well for them. And under trying circumstances, with a completely new halves outfit in Gutherson and Moses this week, as opposed to Smith, Will Smith and Norman last week, that's going to change things drastically. So, and Vave moving over to Parramatta from Manly, again, he's pretty much picked up where he left off as far as being that substitute off the bench that brings that ferocity. But yeah, the Canberra Raiders just sort of held the footy, bid their time, and just pushed up. This is sort of the off-the-cuff shit that we're used to seeing from them, and it was good to see Blake Austin do what he does best, and that's push around the footy and finish well. Para had their chances, but just couldn't execute in the end, and the Raiders were able to clean up the scraps. And when you give the Raiders too many opportunities, they've got enough strike power that eventually they're just going to find something that works. And you look at this, one of the best finishers in the game at the moment, and you probably wouldn't have put your money on anyone else to seal the deal for the Raiders. This is just desperation. This is just competitive nature, clutch plays, man of the moment. Ball goes back, still scramble. That's a bit of a fluky play, and it'll be interesting to see again what happens there with Jennings. There's obviously a little bit of conjecture about who could go what way in the centre and wing for Laurie Daly's Blues team, but it was just a case of desperation. Who wanted it more? And here it is, the clip that I wanted. Bing, bang, bong. I said all day that's where they were going to get the joy. Whether Papalii was going to get the rewards of the tries, he didn't end up doing so, but always gave Croker and Kotrick space, and they ended up being the point scorers. Get that in you. I could watch that all day. I don't care if it's big bloke on little bloke. It takes something to isolate that, and that's a skill in my eyes. So yeah, we've seen the Raiders there come out trumps. Moving on to the next game, we've got the Knights and Panthers. Well, definitely a case of last week's repeating itself, a bit of Groundhog Day, if you'd like. No one really expected this. Most of all myself, I definitely thought that the Panthers were really going to benefit from the momentum of last week, but it was good to see Newcastle also get some of their own and move forward positively. And I thought Brock Lamb and Jalen Feeney actually stood up and took a good amount of control. Danny Levi was getting out of 9 a lot more productively, and that's what was working for them early on. But again, this is what it all comes back to, is possession. You know, when you've got people that are pushing around the footy, holding the ball, getting quick play the balls, and you get on that momentum, and then all of a sudden you're developing these kick chase abilities where you're burying teams into their own half and they're struggling to get out. It becomes really hard for teams to fight their way back in. That they need that relieving penalty. So if the discipline's high in all aspects of the game, everything starts to fall your way, and that's definitely not what happened for Newcastle. That's definitely not what happened for Penrith in the first half, and we've seen that there. So they went into halftime 14-0 down. Again, they were down to 0. But then they just absolutely starved Newcastle of possession. And we see here, look, it's the 48-minute mark before they cross the line through Moylan. But possession ends up 58% to 42% in favour of the Penrith side. More questions need to be asked, like when are Penrith going to play a full game? Imagine what they could do to teams if they put a full performance together. It's twice that they've scored 30 points in a single half of footy, albeit they did concede a late try in this one, as opposed to keeping the Warriors scoreless in their second half performance last week. But yeah, call it opportunistic, whatever you like, but in that instance there, that was just poor inside pressure from Newcastle. They sort of just went away from the play, and again, this is just picking off their numbers. They've pulled that winger, so we've seen Dallin Martin-Zelezniak there come off his wing and play a lot more on that edge. But the 2 tries coming off the back here, the Moylan try and the Tamo try, Gagai's probably a little bit unlucky there. He should have just batted it dead. His case for the fact that he grounded, I think, was null and void. He didn't ground the ball. But yeah, for me, Penrith just need to start playing to their full potential. It's super frustrating. I know I voiced my frustrations earlier when I first started Footy Rants, and I've always loved watching Penrith, that style of play. They've always had those young kids in their team. We've seen it, a generation ago in 2003 when you had all the young forwards coming through and they were just playing off the flair of the likes of Luke Lewis when he was a winger, and Luke Rooney. Gerds was still there, the experience that he brought. So it was this perfect balance of youth and experience, and I think that's sort of where they're at now. I believe their average ages are only like 24 or 25, the Penrith side. So to see something more like that continue to happen and continue to grow, it's going to be interesting now with those injuries sustained for Wallace. He's probably another one that falls in a similar boat to Nate Miles. I probably wouldn't have picked him in my team if I'm Laurie Daly. I think they will end up going with Robbie Farah, although I'd like to see Nathan Peets get a crack. But I think I'll go with Farah just based off experience. They'll want to get that game one solidarity moving forward. But it was a shame to see Wallace go out. It was a bit of an awkward injury through the groin, but just the way he was sort of tackled. And then Cartwright's also done his knee. Again, we don't know the extent of that. We should know, definitely by the review, the preview, later in the week. So does that then lead the inclusion of Mitch Rain? He's been left in reserve grade from all reports. Has been playing some good footy down there, but just can't seem to get a crack. Had he taken less money at the Dragons, he could potentially be riding that wave of success. But again, that's the world's a beautiful thing when you look at it in a case of what ifs. So yeah, do they go Mish Rain? They've got the possibilities of Tyrone Peachy there being promoted off the bench and playing 9. And then for Cardi, you'd probably say that Tamari Martin would slot in there and move into that role. Either that, or they'd pull Moylan into the halves and mix up the fullback role. So with Dylan Edwards more than capable of doing a job out the back. So yeah, it'll be interesting what they do moving ahead with the Penrith side. But yeah, I'd just love to see some consistency there. I'm not sure what they've got to change with those starts. Whether it's just getting through their sets a bit more cleaner, a bit more strategy around it. But yeah, for whatever reason, they just can't seem to find their way in. But we all see now what they're capable of. 60 points in a game, really. Technically, 2 halves of footy. The last 2 halves are 60 to 6. So they've definitely got points there. So if they can start to string a case of wins together, it's danger signs for sure for any club. Moving to the next game, this was probably my favourite game of the round. I was looking forward to most, and it lived up to the expectation. Like we said, there was a number of head-to-head battles either way. You had Jackson and Cordner, Lee and Mitchell. You had Napa and Clemmer, and Graham. He was pretty much versing both of them. It was great to see. And then, yeah, the Bulldogs side sort of probably surprised a few people, catching the edge out, but again, we see here the great finish. But again, what happened? The Rooster side was attacking that right edge. As soon as they opened up, bang, this left side, Keary just ran rampant. These three here, Keary, Mitchell, and Tupou, were pretty much playing their own game for probably a good 3/4 of this first half. Yeah, a little bit opportunistic there for the Jake Friend try, but it's all about pushing up on the footy. The only way that you're going to get those results if you take those opportunities when they're laid out in front of you. Michael Gordon's in a good spate of kicking as far as his goal kicking is going. I think he's kicked something like 15 of his last 17 or something like that. So yeah, he's in red hot form. But these guys are just pushing up for each other. It was good to see Mitchell playing with some confidence there. But that was, if we can just see this, peel this back. Mitchell Pearce, what he does here off this first one. Just watch him tearing from behind the ruck here. And what that does, and I'll take that back again, and you'll see how he gets held up. So shaping, and see here, Brenko Lee's forced to come up out of the line, but then you've got these three who are in a stagger. So he's trying to cut off because he thinks he's going to go pass, and as soon as Brenko Lee's caught up there, well, then we see what happens after that. Toes it in, and it's lights out. So again, really creative play off the back of the running game of Mitchell Pearce. So that for me was the difference in the two teams, was the running game of Luke Keary and Mitchell Pearce. And I think Mitchell Pearce all but silenced any critics of whether or not he'll be that New South Wales halfback. I think he most definitely will. But yeah, after being 20-6 down, the Dogs, I don't think many people would have given him much chance to get back into the game. So to see him score this try, and then again, it's about making the most of your opportunities. This is where Latrell Mitchell goes down injured. You can see Kane Evans gets isolated on that edge, and the rest is history. So it's just good push from all involved. Tupou unlucky not to get a hold of Frawley there, and then all of a sudden it was game on, and that's what you expect from the Dogs. You expect them to compete on everything. So it'll be interesting to see what happens moving forward with Mitchell to the extent of that injury. And yeah, here we go. They were going at it, these two boys. And it's good to see those competitive battles, and it brings out the best. And this is just pushing up like all good halves should do. And I don't think it probably could have gone to anyone that deserved it better than Mitchell Pearce. He got that win for him against the Warriors, and for him to steal another one, it just shows the sort of season that he's having for the Roosters. And yeah, to get that result, he still had a bit of work to do. So it just again, it's another asset that that Trent Robinson has up his sleeve with his halves. You know, he's got a big half in Mitchell Pearce that's happy to barge his way over the line short, and then you've got Keary who just probes and just elevates the speed at which his edges can push up on, especially that left edge. You know, when you're playing with the sort of options that you've got, where you're like, okay, you know, if I'm Branko Lee and I'm Mo Zembai, I'm like, okay, so who's pushing up now? Who's coming at me? Is it Keary? Is it Pearce? Is it Keary? Is it Pearce? You know, is it an edge back rower? Is Latrell Mitchell going to dig his nose through the line? You know, there's just so many options. Okay, we've pushed him to an edge. Oh no, but now Tupou's got an offload back on the inside, or he's put that grubber through. You know, the Roosters are just starting to create multiple answers for a multitude of different questions that defenses are posing to them. So it's a really good thing to see. You know, the fact that offloads were 21-8 in favour of the Roosters and line rate 6-3, to only go down by 6 points to a team that has the attacking prowess of the Roosters. I don't think it'll be panic stations for Desi Hasler. He'll be, you know, I think stoked with the fact that he got him back into the game at 20-18, and he probably should have felt, and probably honestly still felt, that they were a chance to win the game after Michael Gordon misses that kick towards the end. You know, it should have been 26-18, and the game was put to sleep. But there was still a chance, and a big turning point was when Adam Elliott dropped that ball. Unfortunately, young fella, you know, I've given him raps and a little bit of advice last week as well, you know, when he was trying to block those kicks that were getting put through. But yeah, just tried to rush the play the ball a little bit, but it was good to see the competitive nature come out in the bloke and really want to rip in for his team and make up for his error, and he got stuck right into Jared Waerea-Hargreaves in a great one-on-one tackle which forced an error, and at least gave him the opportunity. You know, they had that little spark up the left edge where they were half a chance, but yeah, they just couldn't get the job done. And I think the Roosters definitely did deserve to win. Just their first half dominance and ability to continue on even after Latrell Mitchell left the field. I think if he doesn't leave the field, I think that combination continues to grow, and they're probably going to score a few more points. But Ryan Madison filling in there, not super experienced in the centres, carrying a few more kilos than what he's used to this year. The young fella, he's had a big off season clearly, and yeah, he's a big lump of a lad, and he's looking to be a back row for Trent Robinson, not a centre. So, you know, I think it was a fair result and a fair indication of, you know, the style of play that the Dogs bring to the table in their gritty nature and their never say die attitude. But again, we saw the big point of difference that the Roosters are bringing week in, week out through that halves combination. And I think Keary, outside of Paul Vaughan, has probably been the buy of the year in the NRL. Moving into the final game, and don't have any video for this one, unfortunately, so I'll just quickly switch back. We had the Storm versus the Rabbitohs, and look, you know, I sort of felt a little bit sorry the effort that, you know, the game has sort of gone to get the game over to Perth, but really when the conditions went south the way they did, and you've got a team like the Melbourne Storm who are so happy to just suffocate any team, doesn't matter whether they're a top 4 team or they're coming dead last, they're happy to just suffocate a team and get the 2 points. It doesn't make for the most entertaining game of rugby league that you'll ever see, and that's exactly what we saw late last night from Perth. Again, Craig Bellamy will be, you know, I think still pretty disappointed with a lot of the stats that sort of came out of that game. We had 13 errors, you know, albeit the Rabbitohs were just as bad with 12. 13 errors is not acceptable for a team that is on top of the ladder. You know, 8-4 penalty count. Again, whether that sort of looks unfavourably against the Melbourne Storm, and you know, we all know that they're happy to give away penalties on their defending on their own line and backing the defensive structures, but you know, I think that's where, you know, the use of a 5-minute sin bin should come into play. I would love to see that. I'd be happy for, you know, when you clearly see teams are happy to lay in the ruck or just really slow that play of the ball up, just so that they know that they're set. Obviously, you have to cover less ground when you're defending your own line and coming up into the attack. But yeah, I think they'll be happy to take the bye this weekend, go back, have a look at a few little things,
I still felt as though Cameron Munster was still really clunky. There was a few times there when they looked for some attacking shape and they were real flat, or something was just a little bit disjointed. And yeah, I know it's going to take time and adjusting to Billy Slater being back, who loves roving and playing down that right edge as well. So it sort of appears that's the way they're sort of playing at the moment, is Slater sweeps out to that right edge, Munster sweeps out to the left. But yeah, it's just not quite working at the moment. But I thought where he did really make up was some of his one-on-one defensive efforts on that left edge. He came up with a few key decisions. One great one-on-one tackle, I think it was against Crichton, if my memory serves me correctly, which was, it would have been a try probably 90% of the time. So yeah, hats off to Munster for his defence. He definitely couldn't knock him there. But yeah, it was just a case of the Melbourne Storm just being really, really patient. And when you got finishers in the game like Addo-Carr and Vunivalu, again, they just did what needed to be done at key times. And we've seen by the end there, the only thing that really kept the game remotely exciting was the closeness on the scoreboard. It was 10-6 right up until 6 minutes to go before Vunivalu scored a great try, really. I thought Cody Walker should have absolutely pumped him into the sideline, but it just shows you how big Vunivalu actually is for him to be able to score that try when he's got two defenders coming across, and didn't really hold an overly low body position, stayed relatively high, but yeah, it was still managed to get the job done. A few little key errors by the Burgess brothers again keep sneaking into the game, which at times cancel out a lot of the good work that they do. It was good to see John Sutton full of running again. He got that try early, but I think they sort of shied away from that a little bit, and I think that was an area where they really could have kept probing those edges. Like I said, there's still that little bit of inexperience around some of the Storm edge players, mainly through Tohu Harris still coming back and finding his feet, but I don't think there's really been a period of finding his feet. I think he's come straight back and played extremely well in his first two games. It's been awesome, really good to watch, and happy for the bloke. But where they sort of lost the creativity towards the end was when Reynolds went off with that HIA. That really, that short kicking game that he brings, and his ability on his kick chase to go in and be that first defender in, much like Cooper Cronk is good at. It was a little bit lacking and a bit disappointing. So the Rabbits would have felt like they probably let one go away. You look at the stats and they definitely had their opportunities, but being close enough isn't good enough when you hold the form that the Rabbitohs do this season. When you're a team like the Storm, like the Sharks, who over the last probably 4 weeks of football have been subpar when it comes to their standards, are still getting wins. That's the difference. It's not performing your best, but still getting the overall result, as opposed to being near enough, but not getting the result, not being good enough. So yeah, that pretty much sums up everything round 11. As I said, by the time this is posted, we should well and truly know those Origin squads, and I'll more than likely delve into my thoughts. It'll probably be a lot shorter sort of little video for you guys tomorrow about that Origin side. So yeah, I hope you're all excited as I am, leading into Origin 1. We're now only just over a week away, and I can't wait for it. So until later in the week, I think we've only got 4 games this week. So yeah, it'll be a nice short little preview, and we'll touch on some Origin stuff later too. Alrighty guys, thanks for tuning in, and as always, it is greatly appreciated if you could share on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, just so you know when the videos are coming out, you get little alerts, and then just get involved in the conversations that I'm developing on here. The more that we can blow this up, and the more footy fans that we can bring on board to get the ranting going, that absolutely makes my day, and I love talking everything football. So please enjoy and have a great day. Later guys.